Wesley Snipes is easily one of the most iconic and successful action stars to date. He has a career spanning over 30 years and has been in many classics including Passenger 57, Demolition Man, and so many more. Arguably, his biggest role is the character Blade. Snipes brought the Marvel character to life on the big screen, and many believe that the success of these movies allowed for the hero movie empires we see today. While the franchise had its success, it also had its onset problems. David S. Goyer, who wrote all three films, and Snipes did not get along. It is worth noting that while Goyer wrote all three films, he only directed Blade Trinity, the other two being directed by Stephen Norrington and Guillermo del Toro. Guillermo del Toro. It took me too many times to get that down, and I still didn't even get it right. Basically, Blade Trinity is the third installment of the Blade franchise, and we are introduced to a crew of vampire hunters called the Night Stalkers, who rescue Blade and assist him in thwarting a plan to awaken the first vampire, Dracula, also known as Drake. The Night Stalkers featured characters played by Jessica Biel, Ryan Reynolds, and others. The beef between Snipes and Goyer allegedly was around the lack of black representation in the movie. Fellow co-star Patton Oswalt did an interview with the AV Club in 2012 where he described his experience working on the Blade set. In the interview, Oswalt recalls the incident that he believes set up the feud between Goyer and Snipes, stating, "I remember one day on the set, they let everyone pick their own clothes. There was one black actor who was also kind of a club kid, and he wore this shirt with the word garbage on it in big stylish letters. It was his shirt, and Wesley came down to the set, which he only did for close-ups. Everything else was done by his stand-in. I only did one scene with him, but he comes on and goes, 'There's only one other black guy in the movie, and you make him wear a shirt that says garbage? You racist mother,' expletive, and he tried to strangle the director." According to Oswalt's account of the situation, this incident shook Goyer. Goyer, who's worried about a future hands-on confrontation, goes to a bar and hires bikers to pose as bodyguards for him. This eventually led to Snipes and Goyer having a sit-down where Wesley told David that he should quit. He said to Goyer that he was detrimental to the movie, which Goyer replied with, "Why don't you quit? We have all your close-ups, and your fill-in can do the rest of the scenes with your stand-in." That obviously angered Snipes, and he walked off the meeting. For the rest of the time on set, he only communicated with Goyer through post-it notes and signed them as Blade. This apparently wasn't the only act of rebellion against the director. Other than the post-its actions, there were rumors that Snipes was just overall uncooperative with the shooting of the film, including the famous rumor that Snipes refused to open his eyes for one of the scenes, and they had to CGI his eyes in the post-production. That's actually kind of funny. You think about it, like, open your eyes, Snipes. Open them. And he's like, "Nah, I'm good." Oswalt went on to say that Snipes would spend all day in his trailer smoking weed and stayed in character the whole time, whether shooting or not shooting on set. Per The Hollywood Reporter, Goyer's reply to Oswalt's reencountment of events were, "Let's just say I have tremendous respect for Wesley as an actor. He used to be a friend. We're not friends anymore. I am friends with Patton, and I've worked with Patton since, so I don't think anyone involved in that film had a good experience on that film. Certainly I didn't. I don't think anybody involved with that film is happy with the results. It was a very tortured production." Now, Wesley Snipes will go on later to deny this incident ever happened. In an interview with The Guardian, Snipes stated, "Let me tell you one thing. If I had tried to strangle David Goyer, you probably wouldn't be talking to me now. A black guy with muscles strangling the director of a movie is going to jail. I guarantee you," Snipes told The Guardian. "This is part of the challenges that we as African Americans face here in America. These microaggressions. The presumption that one white guy can make a statement and that statement stands as true. Why would people believe this version is true? Because they are predisposed to believing the black guy is always a problem." Snipes continued, "And all it takes is one person. Mr. Oswalt, who I really don't know. I can barely remember him on the set, but it's fascinating that his statement alone was enough to make people go, 'Yeah, you know, Snipes has got a problem.' I remind you that I was one of the executive producers of the project," Snipes said. "I had the contractual director approval. I was not just the actor for hire. I had authority to say, to dictate, to decide. This was a hard concept for a lot of people to wrap their heads around." Snipes would later sue New Line Cinema for $5 million in damages, stating that he wasn't allowed to give input on the director, cast, and screenplay, which was in violation of his contract. He also stated in the suit that he was harassed and defamed due to his race and that his efforts to make a more diverse cast was brushed off and not considered. Snipes stated this led to feelings of isolation and exclusion for him. His main complaints with the Blade Trinity script was the humor, which he felt was juvenile. Snipes believed that instead of making a Blade movie, they were trying to make a Night Stalkers movie with intentions of making spin-off movies for Beale and Reynolds. However, nothing came out of the lawsuit. While Snipes states that the stories by Oswalt were fabricated, a journalist from Spin, Chris Perry, visited the Blade Trinity set to write an article. The piece was never released as Perry had a hard time getting Snipes to cooperate. After news of the lawsuit surfaced, Perry decided to share his experience with Snipes and the crew of Blade Trinity. He went on to state Ryan Reynolds called Snipes intense, while Jessica Biel stated she noticed he was always in character. Even though Goyer expressed to Uproxx in 2016 the Blade Trinity was the most personally and professionally difficult and painful thing I've ever been through, Snipes seems to think of the experience not so bleak. Speaking with Vice, Snipes reminisced on the experience stating, "I don't fault him. I don't fault anybody. That's just what it was, man. Nobody thought that the Blade stuff was gonna pop off in the first place. It was an anomaly. All of it was an anomaly. It just happens over time. Nobody knows who was the one who struck gold, but everybody claims it. So he did what he had to do. We did what we did based on what we knew at the time, and that was the way it was. It's a wonderful thing where you can look back and say, hey, at the end of the day, we still did something great. Great people, great talent, great future. We laid the foundation for something bigger than we even imagined. That being said, we were the products of those that laid the foundation for us. So, Hakuna Matata." At the end of the day, as many fans, and including Ryan Reynolds, have said, there is only one Blade. While others in the future may take up the mantle, Wesley Snipes introduced the character Blade in a fashion only he could pull off and achieve. In my personal opinion, the first Blade is S-class, but Trinity wasn't horrible, It had its moments. Let me know which Blade movie is your favorite. Do you hold Snipes, Goyer, or anyone else at fault for how Blade Trinity turned out? Leave a comment, let's talk about it. Thanks for being here with me. Later.